I'm going to move away from general considerations of theories about how art worlds work to some studies that have been done on controversies and the rejection of art. This has been big news in North America and actually in other places in the world. The image shown in this slide is of the removal of a statue of a historic figure who was associated with slavery. And the objectives today in this series of lectures is going to be on how approaches to controversies about the arts and the rejection of art can be seen as modes of communication. I'll also discuss in a short section some ideas for the short assignment associated with this work. This is an image here of a controversial sculpture. It was a large sculpture exhibited in Vancouver as part of a biennale, or a twice yearly exhibition of public sculptures in the city. It was before I moved here, but it was controversial because it showed an upside down church, offending some people who believed that that was disrespectful. The required reading primarily is a reading by W.J.T. Mitchell called Offending Images. And there are other recommended readings mentioned in the lecture. For example, a work by Dario Gamboni and some work by Bruno Latour. There are other recommended readings related to this week's theme, which I'm not going to be discussing in this series of lectures, but we'll come back to later, including work by Kwame Anthony Appiah about who owns culture, and by George Marcus about censorship and Indigenous peoples movements. Art worlds can be seen by some as trading zones or as places where people communicate across boundaries. Trading zones is a term that was developed in the history of science as a metaphor for social and material spaces and how they are used. And according to this theory, in trading zones, people from different cultures or disciplines collaborate without necessarily sharing the same values, language, or understandings of what they hope to achieve. The picture shown here is a picture taken of a protester after the murder of some cartoonists and writers involved with a controversial publication known as Charlie Hebdo, or it was a weekly exhibit. And the pencils here are symbols used by the protesters to indicate that people who write and draw should be remain free of controversy. The controversy stretched on quite a bit because after the murders, the journal published some cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, and this caused protests around the world, including one in Mali, which says, "Don't touch my prophet." This summer, Black Lives Matter protests after the murder of George Floyd erupted across North America and elsewhere in the world. And they became some people have actually drawn maps to show where the protests happened. And this was just a map that was done up until September 3rd. The protests extended across the world. And this is an image of a protest from Korea. George Floyd said, "I can't breathe," in the tape that was recorded as he was dying. And "I can't breathe" has become a symbol for protesters in the Black Lives Matter movement. Next, I'm going to discuss the work of Dario Gamboni, who has looked at acts and aggressions uh, uh, and the rejection of art as acts of communication too.